Okay, so let's dive in. I get to introduce our first aspiration. The first area we're going to dive into is clean energy. And you just heard me say that one of our major challenges is dealing with climate and the fact that we've started massive deployments. If you think about it, we've got a gargantuan task ahead of us. We all understand that if we're going to avoid the worst of climate change, we have to fully decarbonize our economy by 2050, net zero by 2050. That's around the corner. This is a challenge, certainly for me. I felt that it seemed overwhelming, it seemed impossible until President Biden took the most ambitious climate action in history. And what's happening today under his leadership is that we are finally deploying clean energy at a scale that is massive enough that the climate will actually notice. That is a huge deal. So we've gotten started. We all understand that there is much, much more work ahead. The Department of Energy is right in the middle of all of this work, deploying clean energy today and also doing the R&D for the work for the whole road that's still ahead. And today, here at AI Aspirations, we're lucky to have ARPA-E Director Evelyn Wang with us to talk about one of the linchpins for our clean energy ambitions, and that is our electrical grid. So please welcome Evelyn.
Well, thank you, Arthi, and good morning. Our AI aspiration for energy is simple: clean electricity for all. The grid provides electricity that powers our society, from life-saving medical equipment to video calls of loved ones, and to simply keeping the lights on. Unfortunately, our grid is in trouble. Aging infrastructure, extreme weather, and increasing demand all threaten to leave us in the dark. Meanwhile, emissions from the grid contribute to the existential threat of climate change. And that brings us to our aspiration. Imagine powering the aspirations of every American with a grid that is smart, reliable, and 100% clean. The grid's many challenges converged in Sacramento on September 6th, 2022. That day, the city experienced record-breaking temperatures of 116 degrees. The extreme heat led to skyrocketing electricity demand and decreased generation, a grid emergency. Rolling blackouts were only averted when Governor Newsom took the unprecedented step of using California's emergency alert system to ask residents across the state to cut back power immediately. The health of the grid should not rely on people deciding whether they should forego their air conditioning. And this near miss should be a wake-up call as to how fragile our grid has become in the face of climate change. The grid is the world's most complicated machine, with over 7,000 power plants and millions of miles of transmission lines. Today, it faces three tremendous challenges. The first, new sources. Combating climate change and reaching 100% clean electricity by 2035 will require adding gigawatts of new zero-carbon electricity, including 10 times increase in solar and a 10 times increase in wind. Next, we have new sources, new uses. Electrification of transportation and industry, including new uses such as data centers, will increase demand 2 to 3 times while changing patterns of consumption. And finally, reliability. Extreme weather threatens the reliability that we've come to depend on. Major outages has increased about by 64% in the last decade. And we have to reverse this trend to now be able to tackle the challenges ahead. We have to transform the world's most complicated machine, and we have only 10 years to do it. This can be a daunting task. We need to decarbonize the grid and make it more resilient at the same time. Fortunately, AI can provide the tools to navigate these challenges by unlocking data and computational speed. For example, AI-powered grid simulations can shorten the time to connect renewables to the grid from years to months. Load forecasting can enable utilities to ensure that there's always enough power in the right place at the right time. And anomaly prediction can help grid operators ensure that they can respond to blackouts before they happen. AI tools can empower utilities, energy companies, and communities to reach our climate goals while building a reliable grid that works for everyone. To see how this might work in practice, let's zoom in to a critical bottleneck, interconnect studies, used to model how new renewables will impact the grid. And one of the best ways for communities like Sacramento to prevent grid emergencies is to add renewables to the grid. As an example, consider this 125 megawatt project, a medium-sized installation that can power up to about 30,000 homes. Connecting to the grid requires an interconnect study to determine how this new project will interface and impact the rest of the system. Today, these studies take about 50 months, with most projects never built. And AI-powered simulations could make interconnect studies faster and more predictable, decreasing lead times 5-fold while boosting up completion rates. But we can't do anything without a plan. First, we need to define the data, integrating various sources of information ranging from engineering specifications to patterns of weather. Then we have to establish design constraints to make sure that our solution can meet the demands of the job. Next, we have to build prototypes using the best software development practices in industry. Then come demos and verification, because we have to prove that AI can be trusted to do this critical job. And then finally, we have to roll out the solution and replicate it across the nation. This will not be easy, and any efforts to implement AI at scale will have to run across hurdles, including data access, model trust, and innovating in a historically conservative industry. Because a grid has to operate 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, and any small errors can have massive repercussions, it is understandable that people are skeptical in deploying models that seem like a black box. And that's why it's important to take advantage of the latest innovations where we can augment data-driven models with physics-based safety constraints and use tools to help us understand and to interpret the predictions. Only then can AI be trustworthy enough for the grid. In addition to these technical hurdles, there are societal risks, such as safety, security, and privacy, that we have to tackle head on. To achieve our aspiration of clean electricity for all, we may have to use sensitive data, such as household electricity demand. And if we use that data, then we have to be extremely careful and thoughtful as to how that data is protected. But as we overcome these challenges, AI can help us steer the grid to 5 times faster renewable deployment and 5 times greater reliability. Because ultimately, what we care about is not the grid, but the lives that it lets us live. So let's build a world where we have to worry less about where electricity comes from and more about what we can do with it. Thank you.